everyone, this is Dr. B from Steps to the Future coming to you with College Conversations. Find your people. I am really thrilled tonight because I get the opportunity to share this time with some folks that are really near and dear to my heart. We'll talk a little bit about how we met and then give you some information on how college students can also find their people when they go to their college campus or how to find them virtually. So without further ado, let me bring my folks on so you can meet the people who keep me sane. Okay, and here are my guys. This is my group here. So let me give you a little background. All of us were fortunate enough to be part of the IECA Summer Training Institute of 2012. Now there are 106 people in our class. Somehow the 6 of us ended up together, and I think it was Cindy's idea about doing this, or Randy's, one of them, but they'll tell me whose idea it was. So we're going to start with introductions because I really want you to know who these people are and what they do. So on my screen, I'm going to start with Randi.
All right. Well, thank you, Dr. B, for having me and getting our crew together. I love when we get to hang out. My name is Randi Heathman, and my company is the Equestrian College Advisor. As you can tell from the name, it's a very specialized consulting firm. I work with students who have some connection to the equestrian world, to horses and to riding, and I help those students navigate the college process. My background is in college admissions. Before I opened my educational consulting practice, I not only interned in a college admissions office as an undergrad, but then worked as in various capacities as an admission counselor and an equestrian recruitment coordinator for my alma mater, Albion College, which is in Michigan, which is here where I am this evening. And I did that from 2004 until 2012. So had a lot of opportunity to get to know students and usher them as well as their families through the process. And that's how I got interested in becoming an educational consultant and opened my practice part-time in 2011, met these fantastic people in 2012 at our Summer Training Institute, and have been working with clients and families ever since.
Thank you so much, Randi, for that. We appreciate it. Cindy, you're up next.
All right. Hi, everyone. My name is Cindy Allerman. My company is College Journey Consulting. I come from an education background. I was a teacher in Oregon for 18 years. I taught at various grade levels from elementary through middle school, and then some high school level. And then I had moved to Texas about 10 years ago and was looking for a change of direction and discovered educational consulting as a field and decided it was perfect because I could still work with young people, which I really enjoy. And I could be a business owner and kind of design my business in whatever way I wanted. So I love that. In 2012, I went to Summer Training Institute and I met this fabulous group of people. And a few months after that, Randi had posted something on our Facebook group about an article she had written. And part of it was about managing, like working by yourself. And that's one thing that I was having a hard time with in this field is being, working for myself, by myself. I missed people. I missed, going in and having coworkers and chatting and stuff like that. So Randi had, in her article, she had said, one way to do it is get together with your people. So I kind of pounced on that. And we put a message on Facebook, who's interested? And these 6 people, we were the ones that all said, yes, let's start this group. And we started, and we've been meeting monthly ever since. And it's been absolutely wonderful.
Thank you so much, Cindy, for giving us that background. Manjiri, you're next on my screen.
All right. Thank you, Dr. B, for having us together. I'm so excited to see everybody here. And my consulting practice name is BWise College Consulting. And I come from a different background, though in education, not directly related to college admission or consulting. I was a scientist at UNC Chapel Hill in molecular biology. And I worked with a lot of undergraduate students who wanted to go into molecular biology research as well as medicine. And in doing so, what I realized that a lot of them hadn't had exposure to what really it means to do research and to go into medicine. And they struggled in their first a couple of years of their college presence. And and at the same time, I had my own kids going through the college admission process at their high school, and I could see the disconnect between how the college consulting services are at the high school, which are very different because they are meant for larger groups of students, but there was really no presence for any kind of focus on the student himself or herself, and to see what they wanted to do and where they wanted to go. And in my work as a scientist, I worked with a lot of undergrad students and I was a mentor to them. And at some point, it occurred to me that I really wanted to take the undergrad side of science and medicine and research to the high school students and work with them to inspire them and to make sure that they understood what it meant to be going into an university for science or otherwise for education. And that's what prompted me to do something crazy, to change my career at some age 50 plus. And I think this is something that I think I want to say, that you can do whatever you want, whenever you want, as long as you put your mind to it and you really make it your priority or your goal to do so. So when I started to do that, I went into doing a certificate in college counseling through UCLA. And during that time, I learned about the Summer Training Institute, this fabulous opportunity to go and be in a place and learn everything, immerse myself into this world of college consulting. And that's where I was very lucky to find these gems that have pulled me through my initial years, where I was really trying to make sure that I understood what I was doing and I had all that support. And this supportive community is what has helped me today to be where I am. So I think that's what I would like to say.
Thank you so much. I'm going to move on to Ms. Battiste.
Well, Dr. B, it's fun to be here and with our crew. It's so wonderful. So I came into this work primarily from a nonprofit lens. I worked with a nonprofit working on college access for first generation low income students. While I worked with them, serving in capacity of board of directors, and I was an interim ED after I left my corporate career, which is where, I spent a lot of time in roles of project and program management. Always had a real soft spot for working with students. So when my last corporate employer wanted me to go to Long Island, New York, and I'm a native Californian, I was like, yep, that's not going to work. So that's when I decided to say, well, okay, I enjoy working with students, really helping them on their path. Let me figure out what it is that I need to do. So I completed the certificate in college counseling program at UC San Diego Extension in March of 2010, I think it was. And that was basically the year that I launched my business. And then 2 years later, I did attend STI, and I always like to say my connection at STI was always funny because Dr. B and I were confused a lot, and people kept calling me Belinda and calling her Antoinette. And so we figured out, okay, we need to figure out who these other people are, right? Who each other is. And that was the beginning. And it's just been a wonderful friendship. But once we started having our monthly meetings and everything was great, we had a wonderful college tour in Michigan, and that was really kind of cool because I'd never been to Michigan and seen colleges together. But it really has been what I would describe a lifeline in terms of business. I really feel like I found my people. And whenever I'm talking to new IECs, like at the conferences and everything, and they'll ask what tips, the first thing I say is find your people, and you'll be okay if you find your people, but find your people first. So
thank you so much. Thank you. And now our one male, Tom.
Great. Well, thanks for having me, Dr. B. And again, it's always fun to talk with the ladies. My name is Tom Jaworski. I'm from suburban Chicago, northwest suburban Chicago. So my background is I used to be a high school history teacher. That's what I graduated with my undergrad degree with. Then after a couple years of teaching, I started a master's program in school counseling. And then I was working at a small private high school. And when I graduated with my master's degree, the principal approached me and said, "Oh, we'd like to offer you, we want you to use your master's degree. So we want to offer you a position in the counseling department." I never thought that would happen. But I definitely, again, as a teacher, just, you go back at a master's degree, keep, a lifelong learner. So I never thought actually that I would be working in the counseling department at the school because there was no openings or no foreseeable openings. But they opened up a role for me in an honors group that they had created. And the idea was, say, the top 10% of all the students in each class, they wanted kind of a personalized counselor for them. We had a college counselor at the school, but they wanted more of a personalized touch, kind of start them from day one. So as I described, it's like from the first day of high school is, "Hey, congratulations, you're in this honors program. What are you doing for college?" And the idea would be to kind of help them throughout the whole 4 years throughout the college process. So we started with building up their extracurriculars, exposing them to different colleges, taking them on college trips, so on and so forth, all the way up to this time senior year, working on their essays and applications together. So I really enjoyed that aspect of my job, but of course, like everything else, the meetings and all the other paperwork you have to do, just wasn't the most exciting for me. And one day, on the way back from our Saturday morning walk to Starbucks with our then black lab puppy, I was just talking to my wife about different things, and I said, I've always kind of wanted to do something else too. I'm not sure what I want to do. I said, I kind of want to start my own business. And then it was my wife, to give her the credit. She said, "Well, why don't you do what you're doing, but privately?" And I said, "Well, that sounds like a great idea. There are private tutors out there for ACT, SAT subjects, but nobody has ever thought about this job before. So this is what I'm going to do." Unbeknownst to me, I came home and I Googled it, and there was a field out there, but I researched it more, got connected actually through somebody, a friend of my wife's, and told me about IECA, and we went from there. So I decided that a couple of weeks later, because this was about about a week or two ago, this time in 2011 is when I decided I'm going to make this my last school year. And then I'm just going to develop the business as I go along, and then we'll leave. So I left school on May 31st of 2012 was my official first day of Quest College Consulting. And so since I had come to know of IECA, so they had a summer institute, I figured, well, why not learn a little bit more about doing this privately and so on and so forth. And, and then honestly, I went to the conference and I was just trying to be studious, actually. I was taking my job seriously, right? Because this is now my money that I'm spending too. And so even though everybody says it's a write-off, but it's your money you're writing off. So I was taking the conference actually seriously, and so I was just keeping it to myself. But I had just started Twitter, so I was playing around on Twitter, right? Sounded like the cool kid with Twitter, and I came across, I was tweeting for the IECA, and I came across the Equestrian College Advisor. It was tweeting as well too, and I knew she was around there somewhere. So I remember one day walking back to the dorm, and I said, "Hey, you're the college writer." And she said, "Yeah." And so I just got connected with Randi, probably in a 5-minute conversation, time, not too long. And to be honest, I didn't meet the other 4 ladies at the conference. I honestly don't believe I met you there. And then I just kept in touch with Randi, and then Randi got me hooked up with the ladies, and I'm really good really happy that I did that. So honestly, I really wish that I reached out a little bit more and maybe didn't take things so seriously out there, and then I would have met some more people. But I'm happy that what I did, so it worked out well for me. So.
Yay. And it's so funny that Tom says that, because I remember when we were starting the group up and his name was mentioned, I said, "Who's Tom?" I don't remember Tom from there.
I remember the conversation was like, I said, "Hey, Tom would like some connection, some professional connection." He was part of our STI class, and everyone's like, it was one of those moments where I think everyone thought I had an imaginary friend or had met a ghost. And I was like, "No, he's a real person." And I had to present him
Yes,
to prove
that's
to you
true.
guys he was real.
So part of what I wanted us to get together, because we know so many students are going through a really strange transition right now. And whether some of them are on campus, whether they're virtual, there still is this need to meet your people, to find out who your group is. Because as Antoinette said, it's so important to have that support and know that somebody has your back. So for us, this has been, it's been a lifeline. It really has. You know, those monthly meetings are great. I know that I can tell them anything or ask them anything and get really great feedback. and they know they can say anything and my feelings won't get hurt. So it's a very safe space, the 6 of us, to be doing this work and to have each other to bounce ideas off of. So with that being said, what kind of suggestions would you give to students who are looking to find their people? Anyone?
Sure, I'll start. A couple of things I would recommend, and I talk to my students about. One, sometimes you have to take chances. That's kind of how this group came about. I put it out there. I felt like I wanted to connect with more people, and I put it out there. I took a chance and started the group, and we jumped in, and it paid off in spades. You know, it's been absolutely fantastic. The other thing that I recommend is remember to be patient, especially if you've never been away from home and you've never started a new school or anything like that. I grew up a military brat, so I had to start over several times throughout my life. And college was kind of, I knew my brothers there, but who wanted to hang out with your brothers the whole time, you know? So it took me a few months before I really felt like I found my people in college. And I had to be patient, and I had to keep taking chances. And I tried, here's a group that I went to dinner with, and it's like, yeah, we're just not connecting. You know, my roommate was a fantastic roommate, but she was a college athlete. And so she was always at practice. So that didn't work out as far as finding a friend. And it took some time. So I think to remember that it's okay. You're going to go off to college, and it may take a few weeks or a few months, but be patient and keep trying.
Okay, thank you for that one, Cindy. Anyone else like to jump in?
So I can go. I think one of the things is that reach out. Don't be afraid, or don't wait for somebody to get in touch with you, right? If you say, nobody's talking to me, nobody's reaching out to me to be a friend, then you got to step out and take the role of saying something. I remember back in the days, Belinda and I had just met at the Summer Training Institute. And then she asked me if we could go for college visits together, because we live about an hour from each other. And I'm like, yeah, but she reached out, right? She reached out and she stepped out and said, hey, let's go for college visits together. And I think that part where, I could have said no, right? She could have got that, but I'm so glad that I said yes. And we'd have done many, many college visits together. So I want to encourage you to say, put that step out first. Don't wait for other people, or don't keep sitting there and saying that nobody's reaching out to me. You be the one to do that. And so that would be my sense.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Well, and I would like to kind of tie in with what Cindy said about being patient. I remember very distinctly arriving at Summer Training Institute, and it was exactly like the first day of college. We're at a college campus, we're moving into the dorm, and we don't know anybody.
Right.
And along with being patient, remembering that the first friends that you make aren't always going to be the ones that stay with you, and realizing that there's different sizes and types and durations of friendships. Because initially, there were a lot of people that I just talked to, like Manjiri said, you put yourself out there and you make these quick connections, and you're just trying out a fit. And you may not be in touch with that person as much down the line as you are. Everyone here is someone that I met later on, once we'd all kind of settled into the conference. And, the people I talked with the most on the first couple of days are certainly people I still see at conferences, and they're friends and their colleagues, but they're not part of this group that has grown in a different direction.
Yeah, that is so true. I remember one time, it might have been after we did our presentation in Boston. And I remember somebody said to me, so how do I get to be part of this group? And we had already decided that we were going to keep it to the 6 because, you know, we had been together for a few years at that point. We had grown to know each other. We felt very safe with each other. So we had just kind of internally decided we were just keeping it to us 6, not because we were trying to be snobby or anything, but we just knew what worked for us and wanted to keep it that way. So definitely. Antoinette.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I try to remind students of, remember when you're filling out that Common App and you're listing different activities that you might want to get involved in college, well, leverage those. I mean, you know, like as Cindy mentioned, her roommate in college was an athlete. So her roommate had that community as athletes. So if you're in band, you have that community. So think of those interests that you have and start there. You know, I mean, it was the old adage, you know, if you're told, like, if you want to meet a man, you know, go to places where doing things that you like to do, right? So I think that that's important. And I also think it's important not to have preconceived ideas. Don't think or don't assume that your roommate is going to be your BFF for life, because that may or may not happen. I am so very fortunate that I am still very, very close to my college freshman roommate. And we laugh about that. And we talk about that very first day of moving into the room and how awkward it was and all of those kinds of things. But it's, you know, and I wanted that experience for my son. He didn't have that. I mean, he had an okay relationship with his roommate. I had a great relationship with his roommate's mom, you know, but you know, it wasn't, they got along fine, but they weren't running buddies, but he was in the band. So that wound up being his community. So, you know, remember the things that brought you to a particular school because you've identified activities and clubs and things and start there. That, you know, that's kind of a, you know, at least, you know, other people there, wherever that is, you know, or have a similar interest as you.
Right. Other comments on that? And folks that are out there watching, please throw some comments in there. I see we have one that came in. So we have one comment. This is actually my cousin. He always shows up. Thank you so much, Tony. He thinks this is a great conversation with a positive panel. And it's really good that we're able to get out here and connect students to the work that we do. So thank you for that one, Tony. So I'm trying to think. I remember when I went to college, and unlike a lot of times now, there were quite a few people on the campus that I knew because, you know, I went to a local regional college. But what I remember most is going outside of that group, finding different people outside of the group that we had gone to similar high schools or what have you. So that was one of my biggest takeaways is being comfortable with meeting people who were outside of my typical group. And that took a little bit of doing, you know, when you come from, you know, first generation college student trying to figure out how to navigate the college campus. And there's all these other people that, you know, you're not used to. So again, it was like being able to step outside of that community that I already knew, which then led to some interesting things.
Right. Well, and I think too, you know, I remember my first weeks of college, and I love what you said, Antoinette, because my best friend from college, the first day I met her, I was like, who would ever be friends with that person? No, I don't want any part of that. And, you know, I'm looking 20 years down the road and I'm like, and she's my favorite human. But understanding that in those first few weeks, everyone's uncomfortable and they're putting out their very best facade, either on social media or just when you see them in person, they're faking it. They're nervous and they're uncomfortable. And I know that it can seem like they have it all together because they have figured out one piece of the puzzle that you're still working on. But understanding when you're putting stuff out there that they're in that same position. And so trying not to get to those rush judgments because you're all still figuring it out and just allowing time to be patient, like Cindy said, and let it settle.
Yes. I love that. Let it settle. Because I remember talking to one of my students who I asked her, I said, what would you have done differently your freshman year? And she said, well, you know, all those fairs that they have for the student clubs, the student organizations. She said, I would have gone to those instead of going to class and then going back and sitting in my room. So she said she really wished that she had did that because that would have made a difference for her.
So I could add another one where when seeing in the undergraduate student world, I encourage my students if they were in the similar classes, because most of them either were in like biology, chemistry in large classes, right? And they were trying to understand biology, chemistry. And I encourage them to form study groups. I said, reach out to people in your classroom that you might in your class that might be, you know, something that you want to study together. Form 5 or 6 or something like groups of people, and so through that, because you guys are studying all sort of sciences and research and, you know, going for medicine and things like that, you have common interest, and study groups are a fantastic way of getting those A's or struggling, you know, whatever you're struggling with, and everybody brings something different. So I remember back in the days, in my graduate school days, actually, we were a small group of, we were a class of just 20 of us in the master's program, but we had a great group of 10 of us who studied together. And one of us was very good in taking notes and writing notes. And so he always made, you know, we used to use those carbon papers in there and put the carbon copies and make copies. We would distribute them because not everybody needed to reinvent the wheel for figuring those notes out. So one of us did the classroom notes, one of us did the book notes, and we just shared everything together. And it was funny when we went for the test or the class next day, we if we had the question that we had prepared for and we knew that we were strong, we would just look at each other, like, you know, our heads would go up and it's like, okay, we all can do this well. We know the answer, right? And it just made us so empowered to have that support, you know, the test anxiety or whatever that was. It just helped us calm down quite a bit.
Yeah. And we actually have a comment from one of our classmates, Brenda Gerhardt. Thank you, Brenda. Brenda says, say yes to opportunities. So Brenda was in the Summer Training Institute class of 2012 along with us. So thank you for that, Brenda. That is so important because there will be times that opportunities will come up and some students may be reluctant to take advantage of those opportunities because they don't want to, you know, they want to be with friends they know or someone else they feel comfortable with. So saying yes to opportunities. So thank you so much for that one, Brenda. Really appreciate it.
And I think another thing that's really important too is within what Manjiri talked about with study groups. And I mean, it's like what we do in our group here is leverage each other's strengths. Because Cindy's awesome with processes and Belinda is great with research, and you know, I mean, we all have just sort of different strengths, and so that is a life skill. So let it start in college, but that is truly a life skill that will carry you and support you through, you know, just through all of it. So we can't all be experts in everything. So, you know your strengths and be happy to know what you bring to the table.
Yeah.
Well, and you're building a network because what we are is our own network. We bring our strengths in and our connections. And, you know, in our case, all of us are in the same profession. And so we can use those to help advance our businesses and advance our own knowledge. And for students, it might be building the network to help get an internship, to help get a campus job, to help if you want to run for a student council office position on your campus. I mean, there's a lot of different ways that a network can pay off, and using those opportunities, using those strengths, that's the way that you start. And that's going to carry into your professional career when you get to it.
Yep. That is so true. Teaching students about creating a network. I think people think of networking as something because they hear, oh, got to go networking, and it has a negative connotation, but it really isn't. This network that we have is fantastic. And then you think when we move on to our larger network, you know, when we go back and we look at our other classmates from 2012, like Brenda and Deb Davis and Laird and all the people that we look forward to seeing when we get a chance to go to conferences. That's such a strong network for us. And I think one of the things that we maybe didn't really clarify is, other than Manjiri and I, we're all in different states.
Yes.
So we're all in different states. You know, Manjiri and I are in North Carolina, Randi is in Michigan, Cindy is in Texas, Antoinette is in California, and Tom is in Illinois. But we managed to build our network, you know, geographically. So I know if there's an issue, if I'm learning and I need to know something about a California college, I'm calling Antoinette, because I haven't visited all the colleges in California. Or if I need to know something about Apply Texas, I'm calling Cindy. You know, if I need to know something about equestrian programs, I'm calling Randi. And Tom is just he's like the one that keeps us grounded sometimes in reality. You know, Manjiri is our science person. So back to the other one where we talked about leverage each other's strengths and each other's skills. We know that we have people to reach out to. And then on top of that, they all have people in a different network. So we really managed to I think we do a great job with doing it. And I think it's so important that students realize that the sooner they start creating that network, the better it is going to be for them during that 4 years and after graduation. So that network doesn't go away.
Right.
Yeah.
And
So I guess I want to chime in. I listen to everything, and I have all my notes written down, and everybody seems to be, you know, saying the same things, and I agree with everything. And but I guess you know, and I'm not sure how to phrase this. Which one would be best? Would it be yourself? But also, you know, as everybody said, try different things. So I said, do what you want to do. Try what you want. Try not to succumb to the outside pressures. And that could be like, okay, you meet some friends, like we just thought about. You meet some friends and they're doing this. Like, well, I'm not sure if I want to do that, but I guess I'll go with them because I want to be their friend. There's so much to do on a college campus. Do what you want. Or also, you know, the other pressures, you have family pressures. Like you have older siblings or parents, right? That, oh, I was in this sorority, I was in this fraternity, you have to do it. If those aren't for you, don't do it. So you know, try to, block out that white noise as best as you can and not worry what people have to say. Or if you do and you decide you go in, you do a fraternity, you do a sorority, and it's not for you, or you feel like, well, I can't quit, I'm in. Advice that my mother taught me a long time ago that I will pass on, and she tells me it's easier to quit than to join. So you can just tell them, I'm not going to go anymore. So you can leave the fraternity, you can leave the sorority. You don't have to show up to those club meetings anymore. So just do what you want to do, and then once you're there, don't feel you have to do that anymore. Too, just say no, thank you. I'm sorry, this is not for me.
And I like that.
Yeah. Smarter, don't they?
I can kind of extend what Tom is saying. One of the things is also remember and be kind to yourself, because relationship building takes time. It happens over time. I know when we got together, and slow and steadily, we really kind of gelled from there. And it's possible sometimes that in a college setting, that some friends you make the first semester may not be, they're trying to do the same thing that you are trying to find their people. So there could be a lot of movement in the first or the second semester as everybody's trying to find their people. Maybe the second year it's more set. So be kind, have patience, like I think Cindy said, and remember that it takes time to build relationships.
Yeah, I wanted to add one other thing that if any of you have watched the TED Talk with Brene Brown, she talks about the power of being vulnerable. And I think just recognizing that everyone feels a little bit vulnerable when they are in college or starting a new job or a new experience, whatever. And letting yourself show that a little bit can go a long ways. If you were to say, you know what, I'm feeling lonely to someone, you might be surprised that they would say, oh my gosh, so am I. Let's go have dinner. And just allow yourself to be honest and put yourself out there and realize that it actually makes you more likable, more approachable, and can be a great way to make real connections with people.
Yes. Yes, authentic connections. It's funny because when I think back to my college days, I'm trying to think the people that I'm still close with from college are actually those people that I knew from high school days. I don't really think that there are too many people. Well, no, there are a couple now. Let me back up now that I'm thinking. There are a couple that I'm still have a relationship with that I met in college, but we don't see each other frequently. We probably talk maybe 2 or 3 times a year, but when we do, it's like we haven't missed a beat, you know. So those relationships that built up over time, but we still stayed in touch, you know, post, you know, graduation and what have you. So yeah, I like some of that, you know, and that being vulnerable and being kind. Yeah. Actually, Brene Brown was on the newest, I don't know how many people watch the Red Table Talk with Jada Pinkett Smith and her mom and her daughter, but Brene is on the latest episode that just came out today. And again, she's talking about vulnerability. So check that out if you get a chance.
Yes.
The notion of vulnerability, and we start, I think in our individual practices, we start talking to students about that during the essay process. And what comes to mind when you talk about being vulnerable is Ethan Sawyer in the College Essay Guy and all of his materials. And he talks about being your authentic self and being vulnerable. And I think that we, you know, because of how we work with students on developing their personal statements, that's the first place. But I know that all of us are really focused on helping our students, the students that we work with, get to know themselves. And so the idea is so that when they launch to college, they have a better, they have more self-awareness. And then, you know, we just kind of continue to bolster them a little bit to leveraging that when they get to a college campus. So remember what you've learned about yourself, right? Remember how you were vulnerable when you were writing your essays and things like that, and being your authentic self and making sure that you had your authentic voice. Carry that right on, you know, to your post-secondary education. So we really do, you know, I think in a lot of respects start there when we're, you know, kind of working with them on their whole application process.
Yeah, that's so true. That's so true. It's funny because I was telling one of my students that when I'm doing those exercises with them, I usually do the exercises myself. And I'm always surprised sometimes that new feelings and new challenges can come up depending upon what's going on in my life at that point. So I find those exercises from the College Essay Guide really helpful. Not just for the students, but for me sometimes too.
Well, and I think too, talking about the essay and helping students figure out what that voice is and who they are as they transition from one part of their life to the other. I think about students who, or myself even, when you transition to college, you're like, this is my chance to let go of my high school persona, because I've been, you know, if you've gone to the same school, maybe from kindergarten all the way through 12th grade, and you've been with pretty much the same group of people, you are known in a certain way, or you're part of a certain group, and college is a chance to, you don't have to reinvent yourself, but maybe it's a chance to let that authentic self emerge in a new environment with new people. So you don't have to follow the patterns that made you either fly under the radar in high school or made you successful. It's a chance to try that thing that you've always secretly liked, but you couldn't tell your high school clique or whatever, you know, being that authentic, vulnerable self as a part of developing into whomever you're going to become at college and beyond.
Yeah.
You know, I just want to maybe pivot just a little bit when we talk about finding your people. I think it's also important for students to figure out where their kind of go-to resources are. So not just, you know, their peer group, but who do I need to be connected with in my department? building relationship with one of the most powerful people that I've seen, on campuses, watching through my son's experience was, the admin for a particular department, because that person was making sure if there were internships, if there were special opportunities and those kinds of things. It's about building relationships. And I think the key thing, for students transitioning to college is that it really does take a village of people and resources to be successful. And success has a lot of different components and is defined a lot of different ways. But I think just knowing about your the resources in the tutoring center or the writing center or like health services. And I think that is really, really, whenever students get fully back on campus, but even in this virtual world, knowing who those people are too, and utilizing those resources and being okay with that, So I just think that's another component besides just kind of the peer factor that I just wanted to put out there.
So, can I add, Antoinette? Yeah. You wrote a wonderful article about this on LinkedIn a few years ago. And I don't know if you know this or not. I ever told you. I share that with all my students going off to college, because you just have articulated it so well that even if I tried to explain it, I probably couldn't do a better job. And it's written in, like, I just sent that article off. I just did it like a month ago to my kid who started at NC State and was reaching out to me because she was feeling this whole sense of isolation because of the pandemic. She's on campus, but she can't meet anybody. And she was just struggling through her emotions of like, how do I, and I'm like, oh, I just know perfectly. So I'm going to send it to you. And I just, when you're talking about it, I'm like, does she, you created that resource. And
well, it's funny. I did think about that article as I was talking. I was like, yeah, I wrote about that once, but I never knew. Thank you for sharing that. I have to go back and maybe just update that a little bit. Maybe, I mean, it is still relevant, and I think that it's just going to be, and this is, I know something all of us do, we have to continue to empower the students that we work with to be, Manjiri, I think, to be kind to themselves, yes, right? To take care of themselves. And that there are so many different layers of that. And we, need to remind them there is no stigma. These are some crazy times. None of us know how to navigate this. So I think all of us need some kind of help, just kind of getting through it. And they're processing so much, and they're, launching to college after, going through this whole season where they missed out on all of their traditional rites of passage, so this is kind of feeling a bit surreal in all of that. So, I think that that's, I know, a message that we give to the students that we work with, but it's not just those going into freshman year. It is throughout their time while they're on campus, because of course, we're not just trying to get them there. We work with them extensively to make sure it's a good fit, so that it's someplace where they can matriculate through, and the end goal is graduation. Right.
Yes, absolutely.
That is so true, because, as we talk about being kind to yourself, I know there are days when Antoinette is like talking me off the ledge. She can always tell by my messages on Facebook or something if there's something going on, because I'll get this little message, "You okay today?" So again, that being kind to yourself, I mean, for kids also, but also for us as adults, we've all had to adjust to this new world, and we've all had to learn how to pivot. And I know there are days all of us are feeling it and trying to figure out, okay, what's our next step? Because I know for us, visiting colleges is a big part of what we do. And as of, February, that, at the beginning of March, college visits stopped. I mean, Antoinette and I were planning, this was going to be the year we were going to see each other, like 4 or 5 times, like in person, so that's a big deal. And so we did get one in. We got the January in, and that was it. And then everything else was canceled. So again, it's that being kind to yourself and really understanding that we're all in this. We're all in this situation together, and how we handle it will be different for everyone. Will be different for everyone, but you have to find your people. You can't do this alone.
Right. Yes.
And I would remind parents of that too, because you know, the number of stressed out parents I think we're talking to, they need to be kind to themselves as well, because their kids are feeling their stress.
Yeah, that is so true. So parents, you hear that out there, be kind to yourself, because you didn't create this situation.
Well, on the parent side, I think there's the other thing that I learned through when my son was at college and I was attending a parent weekend. One of the things that they shared with us, because you know, we are right now, even some kids are on campus and it's parenting from a distance, right? And he akined it to a dance. He said the parent should know when to step in and when to step out. I can never forget that, because that's the balance, I think, on the parent side is to, if there is a situation that arises, I think the student should be well equipped, even with Antoinette's article, or to where to go and solve that for themselves, rather than having the parents step in to do that, because part of college is also about knowing where to go when you need support and when you need your people, how to find them, right? So I think the parents have to play that role where they have to encourage their students to take that step themselves, rather than, you know, doing that for them. It's we know that that time is like high school is, you know, even more so that you got to let them have the independence, but college is more so that you don't call the professor to see why the grade was B. It's exactly.
That's not a good thing.
Don't do that. So, okay. Yep. So, yeah.
Tom, were you trying to say something?
Yeah, I mean, obviously, it's a great conversation, and everything. What I wanted to say 5 minutes ago has changed because of a great comment, but it always is. But maybe just to jump on Manjiri's current comment here. Control what you can control out there, like, especially the parents, right? If you can't control, you know, how what the kids are doing, what you want them to do, or even for the students, control what you can control. You know, if it's a college application process, do your best in the application and submit it, and then, you know, you can't worry about what happened the first 3 years. You can't have what happened just with COVID and everything going down. You can't stress yourself out over things like that. So worry about what you can. And now, and then, you know, or what you can do in the future as well too. So, you know, and just try not to stress out about, again, all those things you can't control, because that will make you just, you know, give you more groundedness.
We can't wait for your oldest to go to college, Tom.
As you folks can see, Tom is has a hard time getting a word in with all the women in the group.
I enjoy myself though. I enjoy these
more assertive, because he's used to us doing this.
That's part of being my people, right?
But you know, one of the things that, you know, you guys kind of touched on in terms of parents, parents need to find their people too.
Yes.
And I know when my son attended Morehouse, it's obviously being a smaller college and things like that, but they had like this official organization, Parents Council, but then they also had some local parent associations. So probably the most fun and rewarding things that I've done, you know, is I was actually one of the co-founders for the Northern California Association of Morehouse Parents. We created such a community to support the young men that were 2,000 miles away. So if somebody was going to go visit, you know, hey, can you take this? Can you check in on my kid or whatever? You know, we found out at one meeting we were sitting around and parents were, you know, like talking about, there were several students who were majoring in business, and we would go around and the parents were talking about their kid in this one particular class. And so the parents are texting their kids, and it turns out that these 4 young men were in the same accounting class. So as a parent, you're going, okay, it's not just my child, right? Clearly there's something else. But I mean, just the support that we were able to provide each other, and that organization still, you know, like we would send things, you know, to the students, to the California students twice a year before finals. And then we banded together again when students had to get off campus this year. You know, some students were in situations where they couldn't just get off campus, but as parents, even as several of us were alumni parents, we were able to, you know, we had that community and could count on each other to take care of other sons of Morehouse. And that was, you know, that was a beautiful thing. But I know parents, there are Facebook groups when they're just like the kids now, they join the Facebook groups for admitted students in some schools. Because like I had a student I worked with a few years ago, there was some parents getting together that were, you know, their kids were going off to MIT. And so parents can look for those kinds of groups too. And that can be a big support, especially if your child is going, you know, far away. And I think that becomes very paramount for parents now, given the pandemic, given, you know, kids who had to get off campus very quickly and those kinds of things. So that's just something else I wanted to mention, because parents need support too. Tom, Tom, you'll know.
He'll know. He's got a few years, but he'll know. He'll know. So one of the things that I like to do is to not introduce, but just talk about a book that has something to do with the topic. So at, you know, towards the end of every session, I always bring up a book. So this week's book is
Allerman.
This is anyone see that? This is the Naked Roommates First Year Survival Workbook, the ultimate tool for a college experience, more fun, less stress, and top success. And it's by Harlan Cohen and Cynthia Jenkins. And Cynthia Jenkins was a member of the class of 2012. Yay, Cynthia, got to give her a shout out. So this is a great book for parents to get for their kids, for them to all read it. There's a series, so definitely, you know, check these out. All of this information for the book and everything will be in the show notes, so you can get it there. So, folks, any last words that you want to give to people about finding your people or just making that transition, especially in this time that we're in now?
I'll go first. Remember that the colleges admitted you for a reason. They looked at your application and they knew what you're going to bring to the campus. So now is the time to put that into action. What you told your colleges in your application, in your supplemental essay, why that college was a great fit, and they listened to you and you are there now. So it's time to put that into action.
Oh, I love that.
And I'll piggyback on that and say you belong there. If they accepted you, you belong there. It's common for students to look around and feel like, oh my gosh, why am I here? This was a mistake. It's not. You belong. So believe in yourself.
Right. Yeah. Anyone else?
And I would piggyback on that. And I would say, and you have to give it time, because the person that you find that you are in your second semester of college is going to be different and changed than the person that you are in your first semester of college. So it goes back to everything we said about being patient and kind of letting events unfold and participating. But you're going to change. Other people have gone to college and experienced the same thing, and they too have become successful adults. So you can do it too.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that's a great point, Randy. And I said, let it evolve. And I think it goes back to Cindy's first point of being patient. But also just when you go into things, don't go into it maybe with that one focus and think, what's in it for me? What's in it for me? Like if somebody does ask you, hey, do you want to attend this club with me? And you may not want to, but honestly, the only good reason is you just don't want to go. That's okay. But how many stories have we heard about the entrepreneur who went to a meeting with somebody, or went to a party and met somebody who talked to somebody who knew somebody, and now they're millionaires, billionaires now because they talked to the right person. So just be open and don't always think, what's in it for me? What's in it for you could be going with your friend because they want to go. So that's what's in it for you is friendship.
Yeah.
Very simple.
Right. Yeah. And just going along with what Tom just said, one of the things that I always tell my students, like sometimes they'll talk about, oh, I had to go do this weekend and it was so boring, or my mother or my dad made me do such and such. And I'm like, okay, you have to be there anyway. So find one thing that works for you. Find one thing that you learn from that experience. Maybe it's that you learn that, I don't want to do this anymore. But maybe you learn by watching somebody else at that event. That, maybe that's something that's interesting. So don't waste your time being miserable or being negative. In every situation, there's something positive. So you have to look for it. You have to look for it. You really do. Sometimes you have to look a little harder than other times, but there's always something. You're always going to take a lesson away from it. So just be open to, like Brenda said, say yes to opportunities and look for them. Okay. Anyone else? Thank you so much. I am so thrilled that I get to see my people this way. I do miss hugging on some of your necks, and not being able to see you in person. But hopefully this time next year, we'll be in a position where we can at least get back together in person. So I'm really looking forward to that. Folks who joined in, folks who are watching this on the replay, you have the information for all of these folks so that if you're looking for a college counselor for your son or daughter or your grandchild, you can reach out to one of them. We're all in this together and we're all pretty good at what we do. I thank you so much for joining in, and I will see you next Monday for another College Conversations. Take care, everyone. And you folks, I will see you at our monthly meeting. So you just hang on a minute.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.